So was it inescapable?
Well, obviously not. I mean, they got off the island, but it's whether you're going to live through the escape that has yet to be seen.
Prepare to be plunged into the heart-pounding world of one of history's most daring prison breaks. In the dead of night, under the watchful eye of Alcatraz's unforgiving guards, 3 men embarked on an escape that defied all expectations. Frank Morris, Clarence Anglin, and John Anglin concocted a plan so audacious it still mystifies experts to this day.
It is fascinating.
That is.
Interesting that they released the images.
Yeah.
Right.
Feels like they might know something.
Right, exactly.
All right, Aaron, thank you.
Armed with nothing but determination and ingenuity, they shattered the supposedly impenetrable walls of Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary in 1962. But here's the kicker. Their fate remains an enigma. Did they survive the treacherous waters of San Francisco Bay? Or did they vanish without a trace into the shadows of history? Join us on a pulse-pounding journey as we unravel the gripping tale of the Alcatraz escapees and dare to uncover the truth behind one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Life inside Alcatraz was harsh and strict. Prisoners were subject to strict rules and regulations, and any infraction could result in severe punishment. The prison was designed to be self-sufficient, with its own power plant, water treatment plant, and laundry facilities. Prisoners were also required to work in the prison's industries, such as the prison's bakery, laundry, and carpentry shop. Despite the odds, from 1934 until the prison was closed in 1963, 36 men tried 14 separate escapes. Nearly all were caught or didn't survive the attempt.
50 years ago this week, 3 inmates managed to escape from Alcatraz prison, and it is one of the most enduring crime mysteries in U.S. history. Before Alcatraz closed in March of 1963, 36 prisoners tried to escape, but just 5 remain unaccounted for.
The 4 inmates all knew each other from previous confinements in Florida and Georgia. When they were assigned adjacent cells in December 1961, they began formulating an escape plan under the leadership of Morris. Over the subsequent 6 months, they widened the ventilation ducts beneath their sinks using discarded saw blades found on the prison grounds, metal spoons from the mess hall, and an electric drill improvised from the motor of a vacuum cleaner. The men concealed their work with painted cardboard and masked the noise with Morris's accordion on top of the ambient din of music hour. Once the holes were wide enough to pass through, the men accessed the unguarded utility corridor directly behind their cell's tier and climbed to the vacant top level of the cell block, where they set up a clandestine workshop. Using over 50 raincoats among other stolen and donated materials, they constructed life preservers based on a design Morris found in the March 1962 issue of Popular Mechanics with the article, "Your Life Preserver. How will it behave if you need it?" Morris found other ideas in magazines. Resin to make a lampshade in the November 1960 issue of Popular Mechanics, and signposts of water safety about channel buoys indicating course and navigation hazards in the May 21, 1962 issue of Sports Illustrated. They also assembled a 6 by 14-foot rubber raft, the seams carefully stitched by hand and sealed with liquid plastic available in the shops and heat from nearby steam pipes. Paddles were improvised from plywood and screws. Finally, they climbed a ventilation shaft to the roof and removed the rivets holding a large fan in place. The men concealed their absence while working outside their cells, and after the escape itself, by sculpting dummy heads from a handmade papier-mâché-like mixture of soap, toothpaste, concrete dust, and toilet paper, and giving them a realistic appearance with paint from the maintenance shop and hair from the barbershop floor. With towels and clothing piled under the blankets in their bunks and the dummy heads positioned on the pillows, they appeared to be sleeping. On the night of June 11, 1962, with all preparations in place, the men initiated their plan. West discovered that the cement he had used to reinforce crumbling concrete around his vent had hardened, narrowing the opening and fixing the grill in place. By the time he managed to remove the grill and re-widen the hole, the others had left without him. He returned to his cell and went to sleep. From the service corridor, Morris and the Anglins climbed the ventilation shaft to the roof. Guards heard a loud crash as they broke out of the shaft, but nothing further was heard, and the source of the noise was not investigated. Hauling their gear with them, they descended 50 feet to the ground by sliding down a kitchen vent pipe, then climbed two 12-foot barbed wire perimeter fences. At the northeast shoreline, near the power plant, a blind spot in the prison's network of searchlights and gun towers, they inflated their raft with a concertina stolen from another inmate and modified to serve as a bellows. At some time after 10 p.m., investigators estimated, they boarded the raft, launched it, and departed toward their objective, Angel Island, 2 miles to the north. Morris was born on September 1, 1926, at Gallinger Hospital in Washington, D.C., more recently known as D.C. General Hospital. He was a professional inmate, having lived a life behind bars for the better part of his life. His criminal life began at the early age of 13. He had spent a lifetime navigating the prison system before his arrival on Alcatraz. From his infant years until his teens, Morris was shuffled from one foster home to another, and he was convicted of his first crime at the youthful age of only 13. By the time he reached his later teens, Morris's criminal record would include a multitude of crimes ranging from narcotics possession to armed robbery, and he had become a professional inhabitant of the correctional system. He spent his formative years in a boys' training school and then graduated to a series of ever larger penitentiaries. On January 20, 1960, Frank Morris was apprehended during a burglary and transferred to Alcatraz. He was credited by prison officials as possessing superior intelligence, and he earned his ticket to Alcatraz by building an impressive resume of escapes. Federal officials decided that his pattern of escape attempts, termed as shotgun freedom, although his escapes had never involved the use of a shotgun, would end at the Rock and designated as inmate number AZ441. John, born May 2, 1930, and Clarence, born May 11, 1931, were born into a family of 14 children in Donaldsonville, Georgia. Their parents, George Robert Anglin and Rachel Van Miller Anglin, were seasonal farm workers. In the early 1940s, they moved the family to Ruskin, Florida, 20 miles south of Tampa, where the truck farms and tomato fields provided a more reliable source of income. Each June, they migrated north as far as Michigan to pick cherries. Clarence and John were reportedly inseparable as youngsters. They became skilled swimmers and amazed their siblings by swimming in the frigid waters of Lake Michigan as ice still floated on its surface. Clarence was first caught breaking into a service station when he was 14 years old. The brothers began robbing banks and other establishments as a team in the early 1950s, usually targeting businesses that were closed to ensure that no one got injured. They claimed that they used a weapon only once, during a bank heist, a toy gun. On January 17, 1958, brothers John, Clarence, and Alfred Anglin robbed the Bank of Columbia in Columbia, Alabama. All received 35-year sentences, which they served at Florida State Prison, Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, and then Atlanta Penitentiary. After repeated attempts to escape from the Atlanta facility, John and Clarence were transferred to Alcatraz. John arrived on October 24, 1960, as inmate AZ-4276, and Clarence on January 16, 1961, as inmate AZ-1485. Allen West, born in March 25, 1929. He was arrested over 20 times throughout his lifetime, imprisoned for car theft in 1955, first at Atlanta Penitentiary, then at Florida State Prison. After an escape attempt from the Florida facility, he was transferred to Alcatraz in 1957 at the age of 28 and became inmate AZ-1335. The escape was not discovered until the morning of June 12th due to the successful dummy head trick. Multiple military and law enforcement agencies conducted an extensive air, sea, and land search over the next 10 days. On June 14th, a Coast Guard cutter picked up a paddle floating about 200 yards off the southern shore of Angel Island. On the same day and in the same general location, workers on another boat found a wallet wrapped in plastic complete with names, addresses, and photos of the Anglins' friends and relatives. On June 21st, shreds of raincoat material, believed to be remnants of the raft, were found on a beach not far from the Golden Gate Bridge. The following day, a prison boat picked up a deflated life jacket made from the same material 50 yards off Alcatraz Island. According to the final FBI report, no other physical evidence was found. FBI agents surmised early on that the men had drowned. They cited the fact that the individuals' personal effects were the only belongings they had, and the men would have drowned before leaving them behind. However, no human remains were found at the time. On July 17, 1962, the ship SS Norefjell, a Norwegian freighter departing from Pier 38, reported seeing a body floating 20 miles northwest of the Golden Gate Bridge. Coroner Turkle doubted it was an escapee, suggesting it could be Cecil Philip Herman, who jumped from the bridge days earlier. Neighboring coroners disputed this, suggesting otherwise.
I think they made it to the mainland?
I kind of think they do. I think they did.
Yeah.
The reason I think so is that I know how patient they were. It would be hard for me to believe that they didn't cover the last part of it, the little rowboat, that they wouldn't have that figured out too.
FBI investigators announced their official position that, while it was theoretically possible for the men to have reached Angel Island, the odds of them having survived the turbulent currents and frigid waters of the bay were negligible. According to the final FBI report, West said that they had planned to steal clothes and a car upon reaching land, but no such thefts were reported in the immediate area. What happened next remains a mystery. Did they make it across the bay, get to Angel Island, and then cross Raccoon Strait into Marin County as planned? Or did the wind and waves get the better of them? Plenty of people have gone to great lengths to prove that the men could have survived, but the question remains, did they?
Michael, you have been searching for these men now for 10 years. Do you believe they are still alive?
That's hard to say. You can always assume that because there's never been a body found, but there's a lot of different, speculations on that theory, whether they're alive or not. We have to operate under the assumption that they are because there's never been any proof otherwise.
Where do you think they are likely to be then if they are still alive?
If they lived and made it through the escape, they probably would have had to gone to another country because all of them were generally repeat offenders. So they would have reoffended at some point and been fingerprinted, and we would have identified them at some point. But if they were in a foreign country, that would not have happened. So possibly South America, Central America.
The FBI officially closed its case on December 31st, 1979, and turned over responsibility to the U.S. Marshals Service, which continues to investigate in the unlikely event the trio is still alive. While nobody knows for sure whether John and Clarence Anglin, together with Frank Morris, pulled off their great escape and made it to shore, the 1979 Clint Eastwood film Escape from Alcatraz did a stellar job in spicing up the story and sparking public interest. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy ordered the closure of Alcatraz on March 21, 1963, due to its high operating cost of nearly $10 per prisoner per day, compared to $3 at other prisons. The island's severe erosion, coupled with the need for extensive restoration and maintenance amounting to $3 to $5 million, rendered it economically unsustainable. Its physical isolation necessitated costly transportation of all essentials by boat, including nearly 1 million gallons of water weekly. The federal government deemed it more practical to construct a new facility rather than continue operating Alcatraz, despite its historical significance. After the prison closed, Alcatraz was basically abandoned. Many ideas were proposed for the island, including a monument to the United Nations, a West Coast version of the Statue of Liberty, and a shopping center or a hotel complex. In 1969, the island again made news when a group of Native American Indians claimed Alcatraz as Indian land, with the hope of creating a Native American cultural center and education complex on the island. The Indians of all tribes used their act of civil disobedience to illustrate the troubles faced by Native Americans.
The occupation of Alcatraz was just to visibly put ourselves out there to take land back, because this country is our country, and the island is native land. It belonged to the Ohlone people.
The federal prison at Alcatraz had been abandoned since 1963. So the occupiers invoked the Treaty of Fort Laramie, signed in 1868 between the United States and the Lakota Nation, claiming that it allowed them to seize federal land that was no longer being used.
It was enough for the students to see that a treaty was being broken. So it was just enough to get us all ready to take Alcatraz.
Initially, public support for the Native Americans' cause was strong, and thousands of people, general public, school children, celebrities, hippies, Vietnam War protesters, Hells Angels, came to the island over the next 18 months. Unfortunately, the small Native American leadership group could not control the situation, and much damage occurred: graffiti, vandalism, and a fire that destroyed the lighthouse keeper's home, the warden's home, and the officers' club. In June 1971, federal marshals removed the remaining Native Americans from the island. In the aftermath of the closure of Alcatraz prison, its legacy endures as a symbol of both defiance and confinement. While the island remains a popular tourist destination, its storied history continues to captivate the imagination, serving as a reminder of the relentless pursuit of freedom amidst the harshest of circumstances.